Nerds International proudly presents
Welcome to the Wild Eye Podcast, episode 98. My name is Eric Lamoureux, aka No Sleeves McGee, and here is my co-host for today. We got someone MIA, but he's here, Karl Kiesler. How's it going?
Hey, what's up, Eric?
It's going, man. I just started a new campaign last night, Deadlands. Got a great group of players. We got Uncle Jay, our old friend and co-host of the Murder Hobo show. He's playing the former boxer, now blacksmith, kind of gentleman. He's the punching guy of the group.
Nice. There's some good combos you can do with the new Suede rules for boxing and stuff like that. Yeah.
We got Corey Judd also playing the pastor, the Blessed.
Nice.
And he's got really cool trappings with stigmatas and stuff.
Very cool.
Pretty awesome. Then Jeffrey Reese that we met a few years back at Con on the Cob, and he's playing the Huckster. So we got to try out the new dealing with the devil rolls there, which was pretty cool. Yeah, I think he rolled 22 on his gambling roll, ended up with 10 cards to make.
Oh my god!
he made a full house, and I think it was 10 PowerPoints and a bunch of other stuff. I mean,
very cool.
Really got the guy. Then we've got Tommy Brownell, the man, the legend from the most unread blog ever. And also he wrote some stuff for Deadlands himself. It was his first time playing Savage Worlds as a player.
What?
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
He's got a great blog. I've been on there many times. Awesome.
Yeah.
What's he playing? What kind of character he's playing?
Well, since some of the players are probably listening to this show, I don't want to reveal too much. Let's say he's kind of the leader type, charismatic leader type. And he got his 15 minutes of fame where he got someone to back down with intimidation before shooting the guy. He was reaching for his gun, and he sort of got him to back out.
Very cool.
Finally, Renato, he's the co-host of the Savage Cast in Brazil, the original Savage Cast.
Okay.
So those two, Tommy and Renato, I'd never played with before. So no, I can't. I won't say I was nervous, but you never know, right? And great group of players, role players. Everybody got along. I think one of the things that, to me, when you say great player, a great player will include the other players and their characters into their role play, and that's what they did.
Very cool.
Very nice start. I'm running For Whom the Whistle Blows, so it's Night Train 2. It's a very deadly adventure. Ran it twice before, ended up in TPKs both times. So we'll see how these guys fare.
That's a tough adventure. Are they starting out? What rank are they? They're
season.
Season. Okay.
Yeah, they recommend it's for a season adventure. So they got 4 advances. Renato's playing the weird scientist, and he's got a bunch of gadgets with him. He took new power a couple times, so he's got a gadget for everything. Trappings were excellent. So Yeah,
Awesome.
pretty excited. I've been looking forward to this. And this leads into the topic for today because I decided to interrupt our regular programming of the Right in the Kiesler segment for kind of a more free-form roundtable discussion on campaign selection. Basically, how do you get to decide what you're going to play next? And this is something I hesitated and struggled with for a couple months before I decided to pull the trigger on Deadlands. So I kind of want to go through what my process was and what your process is too when you do that. What I did first for that is reach out to other people on social media. I posted the following questions, and this is kind of what we'll use as guidelines here for this discussion. I think at least something to start with. So I asked, is the choice of your next campaign a group decision? And if so, what is the process? The second one was, what does a setting need to have for you to consider running it? And this is one question maybe I should have explained better, put into context. And what I meant by that is that I know some people, well, especially now, that will not run a setting if it hasn't been converted or adapted to Suede yet. So if it's an old setting, they won't do it. Some people need, and they absolutely need, a plot point campaign to run a setting. If it doesn't have one, they're not going to touch it. And I mean, there's other things. Some people want a really well-supported line so that they have a constant influx of new adventures to run and modules to run, while other GMs will just run their own things, and that's not important to them. So that's what I meant by that question. Then how do you make sure your players know the necessary lore to create characters for this setting? So, you know, let's say I'm running ETU and nobody really understands what it is, and you got a guy that wants to play a 70-year-old janitor in ETU. You know, you should probably know you're supposed to play a student, right? So, or you play a sci-fi and someone wants to play a dwarven paladin. You know. And you know that always happens, right?
Yeah,
so people don't do their homework and stuff. And the last one was, do you start planning the new campaign before the current one is over? Because so all right, I've talked enough right now. So Karl, by these questions or your process, because I know you started running a Ghostbusters campaign.
Right. Yeah.
So why that one?
Well, we moved. Obviously, we're playing online now, so I wanted something. I wanted to put the current campaigns on kind of hold as they were, because I had maps and minis and props and things like that. That when we get back to playing face to face, which we will, I want to use that stuff in those games. So the reason why I picked Ghostbusters was that I had ran a Ghostbusters game way back in the day when the Explorers edition of Savage Worlds was out. I used Jordan Peacock's rules online, and I kind of modified them for myself and used some of them verbatim. So I kind of had a framework of what to go by. I had a campaign already written that I wrote, and with the current situation with everything going on in our country and stuff like that, and the coronavirus, I wanted something kind of lighthearted, because I was running, I had a Deadlands game going on that was very, very, very heavy, and I didn't want to bring that to the table, because there's so much stuff going on right now, and I run Deadlands like it's horror, I run it pretty heavy, so I wanted something lighthearted and comedic. So the Ghostbusters game, I thought, kind of fit perfectly. And both games are going great. I mean, we're laughing, we're having a good time, and it's funny. It's fun and funny. And so that's why I picked Ghostbusters.
Now, every campaign you start, there's an amount of prep that you need to do with that. Does that weigh into your selection? Like if you know, like you said, you had already written a campaign for it, so it was less prep. But
Right.
Did that weigh into your decision too? That you were like, I'm not gonna have to work and write for a couple weeks and make props for it. It's plug and play.
Yeah, it definitely did come into mind. I was kind of racking my brain on like, what can we run? I don't want anything too emotionally heavy. So Ghostbusters came to mind, and I saw some rules online that Bobby Evans, he did an awesome video on Suede, how to convert to make a Ghostbusters game using Suede, just the Suede, the Savage Worlds Adventure Edition. There's a video on his channel. You can look it up on YouTube, and I kind of use that as a basis. It was perfect. It was very, from the things that he suggested, was very easy. So, and I did have a backbone, like you said, of something I've written. So I was kind of looking for something that I didn't really have to start from scratch, and I can use my old campaign that these two groups have never ran and kind of use that. So,
okay, so. I mean, obviously, your players know the movies, so you didn't really have to explain what it was. But when it comes to some kind of player's guide for character creation, what did you provide that group to? Did you just say, open up the core book and make your character and make it fit? Or did you have some, a checklist or something for them?
Yeah, surprisingly, I have two groups. One's an older bunch of gamers, and one's new. They're newer kids, as I call them, but they're not kids. They're just younger people. And surprisingly, like one or two of them have never seen Ghost, but they know of it, but they've never seen it. So they actually had to watch the movies, so which was interesting. But I did make, using Bobby's rules and some of the old stuff that I had from Jordan Peacock, I did make a PDF of my own of setting rules. I wrote down like how the proton packs and the wands work, how traps work. So I had everything kind of written out, and I wrote out, okay, this is where we're starting. This is the year. And I kind of wrote like a little beginning intro. The year's 1991. You guys are the first franchise of the Ghostbusters, and we're going to pick what city, and we're going to go from there. So we kind of, I did give them something to look at, a PDF. It's like only like 2 or 3 pages of stuff, but I did give them a starting point. So
good. Okay.
We all knew what we were doing.
Yeah, that's something that weighs in to my decision.
Right.
Like, do the players have access to the knowledge they need to make a character with? And if not, do I want to spend time and energy to write a player's guide for it? So it's good that you did that in 2-3 pages. It can be digested quite easily.
It doesn't have to be that long. Just something so they can actually have something tangible they can hold on to and say, oh, this is what we're doing. Okay, I get it now. This is the direction we're going,
Makes sense. Yeah. So for me, why Deadlands? So, I mean, ever since it was announced that it was the Kickstarter, I was really intrigued by the idea of their new plot point campaign format. So Horror at Headstone Hill, and I really wanted to run that. But here's the thing. I mean, sure, there's Savage Worlds, and there's so many settings for it, and you can even do your homebrews. But there's also other RPGs, believe it or not. So, I wanted to run Dungeon Crawl Classics with the Lankmar series. I ran it with Savage Worlds, but when I got that box set for DCC Lankmar, I mean, I was blown away. It was so good, and I wanted to run that. I also wanted to run some ICRPG because we're looking, just Insert Imagination, we're looking into publishing a bit more material for that, and I'd like to be more familiar with the rules. So I was thinking Age of Snakes maybe, or even a setting I've been writing for it called Tarnished, like a urban fantasy setting. So that was a possibility too. That was an option.
Yeah.
And there's also another Savage Worlds mini setting that I'm writing that I thought, yeah, maybe I should play test that. That would be a great opportunity for that. Get a group together and work on it.
Yeah.
But like I just mentioned, I would have needed to have that player's guide ready for them to make characters for it. And that was an amount of work that right now I wasn't quite ready for.
Right.
DCC, then I'm like, okay, I've never run it. I've been reading it, but there's a lot of books in that box set. Do I want to spend all that time researching and doing all that work? And then trying to explain those settings. That's the thing, too. If I was going to run Tarnished or Primeval for Savage Worlds, I was going to have to make sure that the players knew what that setting was and their characters really fit with it. And 2 or 3 pages, it's doable, but ask players to read more than that, and it's not going to work, right? So,
yeah. Never seems to happen.
No. But then you look at Deadlands, and well, everybody, my friends, know I have an idea of what Deadlands is, even if they've never played it. They know it's Western and horror, and there's monsters and demons, and it's not that difficult to wrap your head around it. And you look at the different character concepts, archetypes that you can play with that. So I felt like I wouldn't have to do that work for them. And most of these guys, well, all of them were backers, so everybody's got a copy of the new the pre-release Deadlands, the Weird West rules.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just sent out an ad on Facebook and MeWe, and within a day, I had 5 players to play. And
cool.
So in the meantime, we're running For Whom the Whistle Blows until we get. I get my hands on horror at Headstone Hill, and hopefully I'll like it and want to run that. If not, I'll probably be running some of my own material. But yes, so that's my process, and yours was even easier. I think I tend to overthink things a lot, but that comes from me being all about the new shiny thing.
Yeah,
like you watch a movie or a new book comes out, you read a new book and you fall in love with it, and then you want to run that, and then you start running it, and 2 or 3 sessions later you fall in love with something else, and then you want to kill that and move on to the other one. All right. Yeah, that's what happens. So Gary's not there, and I wanted to ask him, but here's the thing. So last year we just finished playing Eye of Kilquato. We had a great group of players again, and then I turn around and asked them. I gave him like 2 or 3 things that I wanted to play, that I wanted to run, and asked them to select one. And then Gary just said, well, run what you want to run. And then we'll fall, we'll fall in line. We'll like it too. If you like it, if you're passionate about it, we will too. And that's a good point. And I think that's what kind of led me to taking so long to make my decision now to run Deadlands. I think it's 2 or 3 months really that it took me to decide, when I was like, okay, I miss running games. Let's run something. Yeah. And what I found out is that I wasn't alone to want to operate like this, to give a few choices, because when I ask people online, you got Laura Oakenshield Tank. She says, as we have rotating GM, the GM will put out there a short list of campaign ideas he or she is interested in running, and the players then decide. They decide. It's like a vote put to a vote. So
that's a great way, because I'm pretty much the GM for both groups. I'm the designated GM. Mm-hmm. We have my buddy Bert does run some games every once in a while in my other group, my one group. But that's cool that they have, like, she has that where there's multiple GMs, you know, the rotating GM thing.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool because I like to play, you know, but I really do love GMing. But I would like to play every once in a while, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But that's cool that they got that set up. It's
Yeah,
lucky.
I've tried that a couple times too, rotating GMs. Sometimes the rug was taken from under me, as they say. But yeah, there's Tor Björtnus Peterson. He says, before the next, I make a list of all the settings I have and let the players pick. So someone else who thinks that way. Richard Woolcock, sometimes a GM might make a few suggestions and the players decide which suggestion they like the best. The game only proceeds if everyone is interested. Garrett Weinstein, I, the GM, suggested a couple of things I was interested in running and asked the players for feedback. Again, it's thrown out there. And Pete Jones, I tend to have a chat with my players to say as GM what I would like to run, usually 3 or 4 different ideas. I then ask them as a group which one they fancy of those proposed. Chris DeBow, same with me. I'll give a few concepts and the players pick one. So, yeah, I mean, Gary gave me a really good suggestion of just picking what I want to run. But I guess what I couldn't really explain at the time is that I wanted to really run all of them. And I'm like, I don't want to choose. You guys choose. And that's what it feels like, right?
Yeah. I used to do it that way where I would bring ideas. I would write this whole list of like different genre. I've done it multiple times. Okay, this game, we could run this and this. And I run a brief synopsis. I write a brief synopsis of each game. And I send it to my players, or we sit around and talk to it. I say, which one do you guys? And I unilaterally, it's like whatever you feel like. I'm like, oh, it's not what I'm asking. Help me,
Yeah.
Help me with the decision. But I used to do that. I don't do that anymore. I'm like,
now you say we're going to run that.
Yeah, like what Gary said. Yeah, I think it's. As for me, I can only speak for myself. If I'm really into it, it's going to be a much better game. If I'm super into it. You know what I mean? I might want to run like 5 different games, but there might be just one that I really, really want to run, and that game's going to shine. And when we started playing ETU, when it first came out, I was part of the Kickstarter. When I got all my stuff and I read through it, I was only running for one group at that time, and it came out, and I'm like, okay, guys, we're playing ETU. I really love this. Our next game is going to be ETU. This is what it is. I had some people like, oh, I don't know if I want to play college kids. I'm like, this is what we're doing. So I kind of put my foot down at that point and was like, because I was into it and I knew I could make it something special with these people, with their characters that they came up with. And it was a fantastic game. And I've run it 3 times since, Degrees of Horror, and they've all been different because of the, what the players bring to the table. All been great.
Yeah, I envy you because me, it's like I got 5 things I want to run, and I'm in love with all of them, and that's choice paralysis, and 2 or 3 months go by before I make my decision. I hate myself.
Yeah, but I also for your second question there, what does the setting need to have for you to consider running it? For me personally, it needs collateral with it. Like, I just can't have a setting where like, okay, this is your generic fantasy setting, go. I need stuff like a plot point campaign. I need at least some adventures, something to go off of. Savage Tales, all those are great. I kind of need that for me to get started, and I use that and I change it. They're not there to be play. I mean, you can play it verbatim if you want to, which I have. The first ETU game was kind of started out that way. It was like kind of playing verbatim as the Degrees of Horror played out. But then the next group I ran it for, I changed it a little bit. And then the third group, I changed it a lot. Like it wasn't like the same type of. It wasn't the same plot point. But I kind of need that backbone, to start with. It helps me create, and create these cool sessions and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I don't really need a plot point campaign, but I know for every setting I like a set of pre-gens and at least a few Savage Tales, like you said.
Okay.
Not because the players will pick those pre-gens, but as a GM, for me, it helps me wrap my head around what the setting is about when I see the type of characters that are supposed to be in that universe, that campaign setting. And with the Savage Tales, what it does is, even if I, like you say, you change them, and I do too, but it gives me an idea of the type of stories that are supposed to take place in that world.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. Pre-gens. I never thought of that as a prerequisite. That's a cool idea.
I wouldn't say it's prerequisite, but I really appreciate that. The chances that I'm going to run the setting increases if there are pre-gens for it.
That's a good idea for aces out there that listen to this. That's any Savage Worlds aces. It's pre-gens.
Doesn't require that much effort, and it's a step up from archetypes, really. That in the books, usually Savage Worlds books, you get like a small paragraph with every kind of concept archetype, but to have fully fleshed out pre-gens, I don't know, I like it.
That's a cool idea. Yeah.
Plus, if I want to kick the tires and just run a one shot and see if I like it, then the work's already been done for me, and I don't have to make pre-gens to run a one shot for that group. So, like Karl says, if you're an ace out there and you want me to play your setting, who cares, right? If I anyway. What about how do you? Yeah, well, I guess we touched on that. How do you make sure your players know the necessary lore to create characters? Like you said, you wrote a couple pages.
Right.
I think that's where playing kind of homebrews or IP settings really help. Like with you, Ghostbusters, just go watch the movie and you'll know what the game is about, or go watch that TV show, or watch the trailer, or whatever. That helps a lot too.
I've also done in the past where we have it's the popular session 0, where we sit around and we just kind of talk about what we're going to play and stuff like that. We've done that in the past in many different games, where we might play that night, we might not. We're going to make characters, or we're going to talk about it, and I'm going to tell you what I think this game is about, and we can just bounce ideas off of each other.
Yeah, the Birdhouse Mysteries, you were just talking about that. There, she says, I make sure the characters know the proper lore by more or less creating it with them, at least in conjunction with their characters. In larger terms, I create a handout with a little setting background and my requests for details I want from the players. And I talked to her after that, and she says it's more like family members, goals in life, and things like that. So, and if you remember on the show, before you got on the show, we had a whole series, 3 episodes on creating your own settings with your group.
Oh yeah.
And although that didn't quite turn out all that good for us, it was a fun exercise. But I've always been intrigued by that, like you said. What kind of adventures you guys want to take part in, what kind of characters you want to be, and that can go a long way too in a session 0. A lot of times, I know for me, session 0 is mostly just creating characters and me laying down the foundations. This is how we're going to do it, and I don't put up with that crap and things like that to make sure everybody's in line. But as far as creating the setting together, I tried with those 2 clowns, Gary and Harrison, and that didn't turn out great.
I did that a little
great before, and so
I did that a little bit. The last Deadlands game we ran, it was face to face, and I took the idea from the Sounds Like Crows podcast which is amazing. It's amazing. Deadlands actual play podcast. I took the idea of that game from there, and I called it Murder of Crows, where the premise was all the players are siblings, and it's in the Deadlands universe. All the players are siblings of some sort, and they're coming home. They've been away from their family, their farmstead, their mother, for many years, 5, 6, 7 years. I forget what the time was. And they're coming home because she has died. So they're coming home to bury her. So it's very Sons of Katie Elder, if you've ever seen that old movie. And Sounds Like Crows has the same premise. So I took that premise and we kind of sat around and I said, okay, you guys are all siblings. That doesn't mean, if it's a white family, everybody's white. You could have been adopted. You could have been a step sibling. We're going to make up who your mother is, who your father is. We're going to make up your family right now. So we just kind of sat around and we talked about it. And I had leading questions like, why did you leave the family 5 years ago? And your brother that sits across from you, what was the rift between you guys? So I kind of had leading questions that kind of prompted them to kind of make their character at the table there. So it was a lot of fun.
I love that stuff, the leading questions, because it really, when I make a character, it's difficult coming up with stuff. But with leading questions, sure, it takes some of your agency away about your character, but at the same time, it means that the GM knows where he's going with this, and he wants to make sure that your character really fits into the story. So I love it.
And I told them beginning, I'm going to have some questions and stuff like that. They might be leading. It might change your character a bit, but I need you guys to be like open-minded, because it's kind of a way to gel everybody together. You just can't make your character. In this case, for this game where you're all or you're related in some way, not necessarily blood related, but you're related in some way. It kind of gels everybody together to one starting point, and you guys are all on the same side, trying to figure out why your mother has died and who killed her, if that's the possible, if that's a possible avenue, or what's happening,
Love it.
Yeah.
So here's one guy here that answered, Robert Bucky. He says, I wish I could say it was in depth while it's processed for the next campaign. He says, but it's more like, hey guys, I'm thinking about running X. You in? On one end of the spectrum, you got me, who's all anguished and thinking, and this guy is like, hey, I want to run this. You guys want to?
Take it or leave it. This is what I'm doing, man. That's cool.
Let's see. Some more points from other people. Let's go with Conrad EramusNorbert. In between campaigns, I run one-shots. Usually I do ask players beforehand, but I only ask them if they want to play in the specific campaign I want to run. I don't ask their opinion on what to play, because mostly I already am in love with a new concept and really want to run it.
Yeah.
So, I'm lucky in that regard too, because I know like a dozen people easy that I can call on to play in a game with me, and they'll be on board. It's just me who's kind of like I said, overthinking it. And you talked about GM's table, Bobby, with his Ghostbuster thing.
Yes.
So for him, the third question about making sure players know the lore, he says, I typically write a gazette. That's a few pages of important bullet points along with the important info for character creation, which really ups the likelihood of people reading it. At the same time, though, now I typically also do a session 0 where not only do we make characters, but the players give input on groups, ideas, and locations they want in the game. If everyone's part of customizing the setting, they are more likely to remember those parts of it. And
for sure. Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree with that. For my Deadlands game, one of the leading questions was because it was set in a town where everybody they were just coming back to a town. One of the questions was if I remember, what was the town's bully? Like, what was the town's bully's name and who were they? So I had set up a question where, okay, there's a family of bullies here. Who is this family? And so they kind of made that up for me. I had to do no work on that except just listen and write. And that's awesome. If you just listen to your players.
It works. I mean, people say, well, to be really immersed in my character, I can't make details about the world. You have to make him for me, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I don't believe in that. I did that once. Well, I did it more than once, but one time that I can remember, and it was Deadlands again, and it was like a spaghetti western one-shot that I ran called Pedro Must Die. And the villain is Pedro, and I start the session by asking them, what did Pedro do to you that you want to kill him so bad?
Yeah.
And just listening to what people came up with,
That's awesome.
He killed one guy. He wasn't really talkative, but he was really in character. And when it was his turn, all he did is he said, "He killed my dog."
That's awesome.
That was so good. Another guy got sick on him.
Yeah.
Says that Pedro got drunk and threw up on me and he needs to die. So it's fun stuff you have to do like that. And
that's awesome. Was that a one shot or was that a campaign? Or
yeah, it was just a one shot.
Yeah,
and
that's awesome for a one shot.
It got people into it right away.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's a great way.
Because usually you just put a villain in there, and you're supposed to hope that the players care enough to defeat it. I mean, they'll play alone because they know that's what they're here for. But if you can give them extra motivation to get them into it, it really makes a difference.
Yeah, sometimes that makes the session. It could be a running joke. You killed my dog. Killed John Wick on him.
You bastard.
That's awesome.
And the last question: do you start planning the new campaign before the current one is over? As I mentioned, if I start doing that, it's when I start losing interest of what I'm currently running. I mean, it would work for a rotating GM, like Laura mentioned. Like that way, you got one GM who's running the game, and the next one already knows, and he's already working on it, and then there's no overlap or gap, I would say, in between campaigns. What about you? Do you start before, or you wait till you're done with one?
I wait till I'm done. I'm like the same way. If I'm doing two things like that, my time and my energy will go towards the new thing rather than trying to finish up the older campaign. And I think because I've done that before, where I've started the next campaign and the older one kind of suffers, and it's not as great as it should be. And that's not fair to the.
It's not into it anymore.
Yeah, and that's not fair to the players and for what you've all built as story. For these games, you want to end it right. At least I think so. You should want to end it right. And at least for me, I can only speak for myself. I can't multitask like that with those two games like that. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I definitely do it like you do. I mean, I'll read something here and there so I can get prepped a little bit, just so I know what the new game is about. But I'll definitely wait, and I'll especially wait after I get characters so I can tailor my adventure and my prep for those characters for that new game. So I even wait even further rather than saying, okay, it's over, I'm going to start prepping this next game. No, I got to wait for the characters and see what we're going to do with that.
Gotcha. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Tor Peterson says, I usually start planning the next campaign before the current one is finished, but it also depends on the timing. If we have a long summer break, for instance, I may not need to start the planning too early, but I usually make notes in OneNote whenever I get an idea for a campaign. Yan Fiala says sometimes, but sometimes he starts planning before, but usually not as long as I'm GMing. I like alternating between playing player characters and GMing. So when I'm PC in a campaign, I might start working on my next GM project, and I think that's legit.
Yeah.
Who else we mentioned? Yeah, I want to thank everybody for answering my call, my questions there. I know there's Corey Dersham. You didn't really answer the last one. I think I added later, but he says for the second. Well, for the first questions, he says, it depends if I want to run something for a current group or if I just want to run it. If I can squeeze another game in and I have something I'm super hyped about, I will. Otherwise, it's democratic to choose which campaign, which I'll do too sometimes. Like, I mean, right now, sure, I started Deadlands, but if I had waited one more month, I've been reading Army of Darkness, the role-playing game, and I probably would have run – that would have been in the mix of my choices. And right now I got this crazy idea of mixing Evil Dead with Planet of the Apes and sending them back in the future where the apes are in control and they have the Necronomicon somewhere and they have to get it back. And I'm really – psyched about that, so I'm thinking of starting a second group now, just so I can run that.
That sounds amazing. I mean, really amazing. You just hit on two things that I love: the Planet of the Apes and the Evil Dead series. That's
like
great.
like the old Planet of the Apes. Remember?
Oh yes,
they're in cages, and imagine it's like Army of Darkness when it starts, right? The Ash is chained. So you have people going through a vortex, ending up in the Planet of the Apes, and they're in cages, and they need the Necronomicon to go back. That'd be so cool.
I love that idea. That is amazing. Let me look at your notes.
Yeah. I'll share them if I get there. But see, now I can't really get psyched too much about that because then Deadlands will suffer, like you said.
Right. You got to wait. I get it. I totally get it.
So let's wrap it up. There's this new product called the Chase Card Print and Bundle. By a friend of the show, John Stevens. A great accessory for chases. Basically, all the rules for the different maneuvers are on cards, and it comes with a mat where you can just lay out your cards for the chase. So if you're having a hard time remembering what each maneuver does and things like that, it looks pretty sharp, the graphic design on it, and pretty cheap as well, and that's on Swag, the Savage Worlds Adventures Guild. So I'll put a link up on there. And he's also got another product called Petramancy, and it's an arcane background where you use stones and crystals and stuff. Cool. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, check him out. He does good work.
Yeah, those chase cards, I saw them on Facebook. They're really cool.
Yeah. Really useful stuff. And while we were talking about Necronomicon and stuff, and you guys got the 50 cents Fiends. What's going on with that?
Yeah, so us at Doghouse, the guys at Doghouse Rules, we put out, it's a new product we're highlighting. It's called 50 Cent Fiends, where it's 50 cents, and you get one creature and a bunch of adventure seeds. And the first one we put out is called Codex of the Dead. It's basically the Necronomicon, if you think about it. And you get the stats for the creature, and you get a description of that, whatever that creature is, and 3 adventure seeds. And these adventure seeds for this one's called Evil Death Cult, the Mascot, and the Portal.
Nice.
One of them the mascot actually came from my Ghostbusters game. So
Is it the Marshmallow Man?
It's actually the Necronomicon book, the Codex of the Dead, and they found it, and it's like their Slimer. So it follows them around, and it hangs around with them, and but there's some evilness that comes with that on top of it. So it's a lot of fun.
Awesome.
Yeah. And we've also got Doghouse. We've got our second volume of Savage Partners. It's Savage Partners is 6 pre-generated Old West characters that you can use as you can just give them the players and just start a game and they're already done. There's 6 pre-gen wild cards in there, and there's also 4 NPC extras that you can use, and it's only 99 cents.
Wow, good deal.
Yeah,
you guys are gonna go under. Your prices are way too low.
I know.
It's like you can't even run a sale. It's already on sale.
Yeah, we can get cheaper than those prices, huh?
50 cents and $1.
Yeah. Oh. It's all PDFs, so, have at it.
That's good.
Labor of love.
Great. So, thanks for that. I want to give a shout out to our newest patron, the A-Bomb.
Nice. A-Bomb.
Thank you, Mr. A-Bomb. Whatever your real name is.
Or Mrs.
Yeah. The A-Bomb. Isn't that Gary after eating Taco Bell?
I think so.
All right. So signing off here, this is Eric saying, tropical, the island breeze, all of nature, wild and free. This is where I long to be.
And this is Karl saying, do you want to Benny that?
Oh, yeah.
It's on. Just to keep it fun and sweaty you out.
All righty. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Wild Eye Podcast. If you would like to get in touch with us, our email address is thewildeye@gmail.com. You can also find us on Facebook, YouTube, and we're the Wild Eye Podcast. If you would like to mingle with us, come join us on the Nerds International group on MeWe, whatever it's called. And we're also on Twitter at The Wild Eye. And also, if you would like to support us, see more awesome content like this, we have a Patreon page. Speaking of which, we would like to thank the following patrons: Uncle J. Raz, Alan Bray, Rob Towell, Conrad EramusNorbert, Corey Judd, Emma Wakeland, Kevin Stanley, Perry Chalmers, Ray Aracia, Bubbles, Dan Brown, Jan Jetmar, Manuel Sams, Mr. Stagg, Sean Richards, Zovia RPG Map, Andy Hall, Brian Kaser, Dale Catsier, Jens Conheim, Patrick Greenlaw, Sid the Squid, and the Digital Dungeon Master. Thank you. See you later.